Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland, and in this episode, we're going to be reviewing the Sparco Evo seat. Now, this particular seat is called an Evo 1. There's also an Evo 2, which is, of course, larger, and there's even an Evo 3, also known as the Big Bubba Evo. Now, this is the smallest seat that they have available that I could find anyway, and it fits me really good as far as being snug on my hips when I sit in the back of the seat. I don't have to squish into it, but it is very snug on my hips, which is great. Now, this is going to be a very different experience compared to my Sim Experience GS4 seat. On that seat, I have like 2 inches of gap of air on each side of my hips. So now let's take a closer look at this seat itself. So let's take a closer look at the seat itself and some of the features on it. First, this is a fiberglass shell seat. Now, they do make this in a carbon fiber version, which is lighter, of course, about 3.5 pounds, I think. And about 3 times as expensive, though. Not quite 3 times, but $2,100 versus $800. That's the difference in the price for the carbon fiber version of this and the fiberglass to save around 3.5 pounds. I couldn't justify it for my needs on my motion platform. However, a better financed simulator shop might be able to have those. All right, so again, just fiberglass back. We got some labels here. This shows this is authentic Sparco seat. We've got a cool laser etched FIA sticker on the side. I'll show you a close up of that. And it kind of changes color, but you can see the FIA there. Turns all purples and stuff like that. Very cool. And also on the bottom here, we'll see that there's a big hole in our bottom of our seat. And of course, this is for when you're running a 5.6 part harness. You'll want to be able to run it up in there instead of taking it across the front of the seat. And once it goes up in there, it fits in the slots that are in the cushion here. Very cool. Now, also on the side of the seat, you'll see some mounting holes for our mounting brackets that we're going to be using to mount this seat to the motion platform over there on the Stage 4 rig. On the front, first we got these nice wings over here that have the rubber pebble material on it to keep you from sliding around, which is great for me because I'm going to have this mounted to a motion platform. And also, I would have liked to seen, looking at it and thinking of it, maybe some kind of a patch here to keep this material from getting abraded as you're getting it out of the rig. I think if you guys have ever seen real race car seats in cars that are actually used for racing, you'll notice some scuffing here, and sometimes the foam's actually sticking out from guys getting it out of the car. Depending on which side this is going to be worn on, it depends on which side they're getting in and out of the car on. Right, so but they didn't do that, but it's not that big of a deal, but it would have been nice to see that. Of course, we got our hoops up here for our shoulder harness. Now, the cushions themselves, let's take a look at those. Get the bottom one out first. They're all Velcroed in, very easy to take in and out. Let's look at the bottom one first. Now, this, of course, unweights the chair, so it wants to fall back. So we'll just let her lay back so I don't drop it off my workbench here. Right, so on the bottom of this is very cool because you can actually take all these Velcro strips here and actually peel all this off and have just the foam cushion exposed. So you can replace the foam cushion. You might want to add some foam cushion to the seat to better fit you. If you got the foam wet, or if you've worn out the foam, or if you've worn out the material on the seat, you can always change this stuff out. Very nice that you don't have to go buy the cushion itself as a one-piece unit, which you can do, by the way. And you can just customize it and replace things as they wear. Now, also the seat and the rest of the seat here, if it doesn't have this pebbly stuff on it, it's kind of a microfiber material, and it's very thin but very smooth. I kind of like it. It actually feels good against your skin. And when I was running shorts, I actually said, man, that's probably nice smooth stuff. And we also have a big patch of the rubber pebbles here, and I'll give you a close-up look at that. And of course, the rubber pebble material is going to allow us to not slide around in our seat. You can see a better shot of it there. And I've actually had gloves that had this pebble material on it, so when you grab something, it doesn't slip out on you. Very good. Now, of course, the back cushion comes out also. A couple of pieces of Velcro holding it in, and now it doesn't want to fall down as much because I've taken this out. Now, this also has this mesh, this micro mesh, or this microfiber material on the back, but on the front, we've got this cool perforation stuff going on. Very deep, very large perforations and some very deep grooves cut into the cushion here. And of course that's for cooling on your back. I'll give you a close-up shot of that. And again, you can see how deep that is, and you can see how deep the grooves in the cushion is, or are. And very nice against your back versus this smoother stuff. That would be definitely be warmer against your back than this nice aerated areas for your back. And I've actually run the seat, and I can attest that it does keep your back pretty cool. All right, so again, we can take all this off. We saw the cable on the bottom that you can take off, and actually the whole seat cover will come off. There's some Velcro pieces in here, so it all comes off. You can actually peel this up and stuff some more foam in there if you wanted to, for a tighter fit if you needed to. So very cool features. Again, most race car seats are going to have this stuff. So now we just put it all back together. Easy enough. I just like to line up the front, the top rather, like that, and then just let the rest of it fall in. And then we'll do the same thing with the bottom cushion. I kind of like to get a big angle on it here because that Velcro likes to grab it real quick. So it kind of messes around with you. All right, very deep, obviously, for this seat. This seat fits me like a glove, and I love it. I've been running a GS4 seat for a while from Sim Experience, which is a fantastic seat in its own right because of, well, the mechanicals of it. But it's also a very large seat, and it needs to be a large seat to have the mechanicals and the electronics and everything mounted to it. But it's a very large seat. It's like 16 inches across the back, where this is like 12 inches. So it fits me like a glove. The other seat, not so much. And I'm interested to find out, actually, what the differences are between this seat and the GS4 seat mounted to my motion rig. So anyway, we'll get to that as we get to it. And again, these two holes need some side mount brackets, and we have some side mount brackets, and we're going to get to those next. So these are the side mount seat brackets that we're going to use. And these are Sparco units. And just because I have a Sparco seat, by the way, doesn't mean I have to have a Sparco seat mounted bracket. There's a lot of different ones out there. No name brands, brand names. I just happened to get these because they were on sale and I like the look of them. And they're nice thick 6mm units, and they have lots of holes in them for mounting variation. And I always try to get as much variation built into a bracket as I can, because it seems that no matter what I get for my rig over here or for other rigs that I've had in the past, nothing seems to quite bolt up correctly and just exactly where I need it to be. I always have to fab something or make a modification to a bracket or something like that. So I thought with all these holes, I was getting lucky. And I'll give you a close-up look at this on the close-up camera here. So you can see there's a lot of holes in that. And there's a nice anodized silver surface on this. And again, on the bottom, there's lots of holes also. So you would think, with all these holes, I'd be able to just take this bracket, mount it up to the holes on the side of the seat, and we're good to go. Well, of course, that didn't work out that way. So the problem is I have to space this bracket out away from the side of the seat, because the holes on the actual mounting platform over there are too far apart. So that means I got to take the brackets out to match those holes. That means I'm going to have to space it out. And when I have to do that, what I normally do, anytime I have to put some spacers in something, I don't go buy a bunch of different spacers and try them. There's an easier way to do it. What I do is get the bolt that I'm going to be using and a box of these. And these are just washers, of course. And what I'll do is just take these washers and start stacking them on the bolt until I get enough washers on here that'll space these brackets off the side of this seat exactly where I need them to be for the bolts to be able to go into the holes that are on the seat mounting bracket over on the rig. I'll give you a close-up look at this. Now these are just regular washers, and they happen to fit. These are actually 1/4-inch washers, and they actually happen to fit pretty well on this 6mm bolt, because all this Sparco stuff came from Europe, so it's all millimeter. But it fits really nice and tight, well, as tight as it's going, as you might imagine, for a washer to fit on a bolt. So I'm just going to build this up until we have enough washers on here so that those brackets line up perfectly. And once I do that, I'm going to come back and show you what I ended up with as far as how many washers I needed and the spacing that we got. All right, now we're back. Now, what you're looking at is the final configuration as far as the spacing from the side of the seat over here to our side of the actual brackets. Now, there's actually more washers in the back than there is in the front because there is a taper to this seat. It's not as wide in the back as it is in front, of course, to accommodate your thighs versus the bottom back here. Now, I'm going to give you a close-up look at how many washers are actually, I'm not going to count them for you. I'm actually just going to show you what they look like. A little bit closer picture there. And as you can see there, line up there. There's the 12 there, and you can see the 10 that are in the front. And this will allow the bottom of this bracket to be nice and straight, as you see here on the platform on the Stage 4 rig. So now it's nice and straight, it'll be nice and square when we actually do the final mounting. So, what we're going to do next is pull the brackets off, pull all the washers off, and then we're going to count the washers again and make sure we have it right. And then we're actually going to measure the washer stacks with this. Then we'll know exactly how much space I need or how much length I'm going to have to cut for the aluminum spacers that I'm going to actually fab up. So we don't have these washers in here, and we just use the nice, clean-looking aluminum spacers. So when we get back, we'll take a look at the stacks and measure them. So now let's take a look at what these washer stacks actually mic out to be or measure out to be. First, we'll take the 12 washer stack. We'll go over here to the close-up camera so you can see it. So there's my 12. And we'll go ahead and clamp this down and tighten it so it won't come loose. And you can see here, we're looking at about 0.7 of an inch. So, and actually let's go ahead and look at what it is in millimeters. 17.85 millimeters. All right, so now let's take a look at the stack with 10 in it. Let's get them in there, tighten them down. And that looks like it's coming out to be about 14.77 as far as millimeters, and 0.58 or just over half an inch in fractions. So, not that much difference, just a couple of millimeters really, or a few millimeters, and so that's not a whole lot of difference as far as the taper we talked about before on this particular seat. And now what we're going to do is fab up some aluminum spacers, and what we'll do next is just show you how I go about doing that. This is an aluminum bar stock, and this is 6061 aluminum bar, and you can get this stuff in different sizes, and I do, and I use it for cutting spacers and doing a couple other things with it. If I need something that's round, it needs to go in a hole, of course. And what we'll do with this is, of course, cut it on a chop saw. But before I do that, I do a quick sanding. You can see here, put it in a vise, just run some sandpaper on it so that we can get the factory branding off and any numbers and things like that off. It's much easier to do it when it's still a whole long stock bar than it is when you cut the little pieces off. Then once we're done with that, we're going to take it over here to the chop saw that you see here. This has a non-ferrous blade in it, and we'll just go ahead and cut to length that we've already measured and marked the pucks that we're going to need to be our spacers. And you can see you just kind of work the blade through here, and it cuts it pretty well. And what we end up with is one of these. And this is and I'll go over here to the side close-up camera so you can get a better look at it. This is aluminum puck after we cut it off. And you can see the blade cuts it pretty well. Sometimes it cuts it better than others. It depends on actually the aluminum. If different types like 661, 775, or 7075 cuts a little bit differently, and because one's harder than the other. So once we have the puck, of course, we're going to need to put a hole in it so we can get this bolt through it. And what we're going to do is bore a hole through it. And that's not hard to do either, because here you'll see me actually drilling the hole in the puck in my little cheapy drill press that has a little vise that moves in 2 different axes so I can line up the puck exactly where I need it to be under the drill bit. And so go ahead and bore our hole to the size we need. Then, once we're finished with boring that hole in the size we need, we end up with this. And of course, that's the hole that the bolt's going to go through now. And I'll give you a close-up look at this. We have a nice tight fit with this spacer around the bolt. You can actually hear the little threads here that are engaging the sides of that hole as it slides over it. So that's what you want, a nice close fit so it's not shaking all around on the bolt, because it's just going to not tighten up the way you want it to. So once we've done that, we've got our hole done. There's only one thing left to do, and that's just to dress up the sides so they're nice and smooth. And they are here because this is what we do. I just go over to my 1-inch sander here and use a non-abrasive belt, something that's got like a 800 grit on it, and just knock off the edges off the pucks themselves so that they don't mar up the fiberglass finish when I use them in the seats. So we've got everything done. We've got all of our spacers done. I got a few more over here. And remember, if you were watching the spacing that I was going to need, I had 12 washers worth over here and 10 over here, which was 14 something millimeters versus 17 something millimeters. And now what we're going to do is put everything back together using the spacers instead of washers and get the seat on the rig and see what it looks like. Okay, we're back, and the seat is now mounted to the Stage 4 rig. And we'll just do a little close-up here, what it looks like on the brackets. And we'll keep it low and go around, and you can see the aluminum spacers that we made are in there. Go over to the right side, see them down there in between the actuators. And I think it's looking pretty good. Okay, now there's only one thing left to do, and that's to get in and take this puppy for a spin, and then we'll get to the final thoughts. Okay, here we are at Watkins Glen in a boot configuration running the Renault 2.0 liter Formula car in iRacing. And I chose a Formula car because nice stiff suspension will help me tell the differences between running this seat and the GS4 seat. Now I ran this seat and the GS4 seat in the same exact Sim Commander settings, and I ran the GS4 seat with it turned on as far as the actuators working, and I also ran the seat with the actuators turned off so that the panels were not moving to try to tell the differences. First off, I can tell you that this seat feels more alive. The reactions from the actuators on the back are quicker, and it seems a little bit more real time. So it's an immediate difference that you notice in this seat. Now, I think it's pretty easy to determine why there's a difference. First off, this seat is half the mass or half the weight of the GS4 seat, and mass makes a difference as far as dampening the effects of anything and pushing against the seat. Number two would be, this is a form-fitting seat versus the GS4 seat, which I admittedly slide around in a little bit because of the size of my body. And this seat, I don't do that. Any input I get from the actuators is felt immediately because I'm not moving around inside of the seat. Number three would be, this is a single-piece fiberglass shell where the GS4 is actually 3 pieces of metal back, bottom, and the headrest bolted together. Now on this straight, you can see the seat's really taking hits here on the rough pavement of the straight right after the boot, or the toe of the boot in Watkins Glen. It's really rough there. And what's really surprising to me is I didn't expect to feel the bumps as much as I did when I was running the GS4 seat, because the panels in the GS4, well, they do what no other seat can do, obviously. But it was kind of strange that I actually could feel the textures of those bumps more acutely than I could with the GS4 seat without the paddles actuated in the GS4 seat. And I was surprised that I could feel as much of road texture just from those 2 actuators and the way they're moving the seat. And that's a testament to the excellent Sim Commander software, actually, I believe. So, the GS4 seat, however, does what this seat can never do and does what only the GS4 seat can do, and that's simulate those G-forces like I said, no other seat can do that. So I'm not getting rid of my GS4 seat by any means. But this seat has its own benefits, and I really like it, so I'll probably be running it for a while. And, you know, I can put the GS4, it's 4 bolts, I can put the GS4 seat back in anytime I want to. And not only that, but the GS4 seat is a bigger seat. I call it the Big Bubba seat from Kirky. And so I have some of the bigger guys that come back and get in my rig and actually drive it. So Next, what we'll do is we'll just get on to the final thoughts. I think you guys have seen me driving this seat around Watkins Glen enough, so let's get to that next. Final thoughts on the Sparco Evo racing seat. First off, I have to say that this seat feels much different in my motion rig than the GS4 seat does. Now, I do lose those great effects of the GS4 panels moving against my body, but I gain some detail of the 3 axes of movement from the actuators. I can feel the effects of the actuators more clearly, and it seems that the effects themselves are faster. Or maybe a better way to put it would be they're more in sync with what I see on the screens. Now, I think this can be accredited to the Evo seat being half the weight of a GS4, and the very tight fit also offered by this Evo seat, which really makes sense when you think about it. This seat is well built, and I like the modularity of the seat cushions on here, which makes it easy to initiate repairs or even tweak the tightness of the seat itself. Now, I'm not saying that the Evo will replace my GS4 seat as the main seat in my rig. No other seat can do what a GS4 seat does, and you just don't realize how good that is unless you've actually used one. And because of the roominess or the roomy seat that's on the GS4, just about anybody can hop in my rig and drive it. But seeing that it's only 4 bolts to remove when I switch in between the 2 seats, I guess you could say I have the best of both worlds now. Well, that's it for now. I'm Barry Rowland, and thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel.